Well, my name is Elyse Meads. I am an intern with Wake Forest University, and I am now in my third year, which is my last year of the program for the master's degree. It's definitely eye-opening. It feels very much at home in my element, with the practice being a Christian counseling practice as well. I think for me that feels very much at home because that is my main modality, Christian counseling. I'm a very strong Christian, and I've gotten to become stronger in my faith through working here. And so I think it's been honestly such a blessing. Christian counseling means a lot to me because spirituality is such a part of healing for a lot of the clients that I see. And when you're able to bring spirituality into the journey for them, it really makes such a difference. Being able to use biblical references in scripture, even having that be a part of their homework when they go home, and they are able to work on their own spirituality as well. Christian counseling in itself is such a beautiful aspect of the counseling perspective as a whole. Like, you're able to get to someone's heart and soul rather than just see the surface level of who they are. Some other modalities that I like to use in my therapy sessions would definitely cognitive-based therapy. I think understanding the person's thought processes and where they're really rooted from, going through them with the client, seeing how someone's thoughts don't start there. They're really based on values that they hold about themselves, and those values could have been created in childhood, late adolescent years, even into adulthood. So it also helps a client see that they're not crazy. Like, the thoughts that you're having come from a place that is a lot deeper than what you're thinking, literally what you're thinking. I also really love to use DBT because it accesses the emotional part of the client and how they can really regulate themselves. And so using techniques like Wise Mind, even radical acceptance, and then pairing that with Christian counseling too, of this is the radical acceptance, and maybe you're holding on to something that is really hard for you to accept that God let happen into your life. And so accessing that with the client and having them see that there's so many different parts of who they are. And so I think those two modalities especially, even parts work if we're going into that as well. They have a childhood part, they have the adult part, and how can we access them both and see how different parts play to protect us and also can hinder us at the same time, and figure out how to heal those as well. So I started with really seeing mainly adolescents and young adults as well as children from 5 to 11, 12. But now that I've gotten more experience working with older individuals, my oldest client is 60, and I really enjoy that as well. So I think the broad aspect of the population, my favorite would probably be the 20 to 30 range. I think that as myself being a 25-year-old, I can really relate to those people in particular, but I also find it very satisfying to work with older people, like 30 above, 60, children as well. So I would say my broad range would be, right now, it's 5 to 60 years old. I was personally affected in a positive way by counseling in my adolescent years, and being someone that has gone through it myself, I can really understand the client and how they feel in that role. And so now being a counselor, it's that aspect of being that wounded healer, and the level of empathy that you hold for the clients that you have is so much greater than anything that I could imagine. And I've always been someone that wants to serve others. And even before I became a Christian, that was who I was. And so now, especially being a Christian, having the capacity to serve other people in the Christian counseling role as well, is really rewarding. Like, if I had to say God's given me a purpose, this would be my purpose that I believe that God has given me for others in the community and beyond. If I can be a part of someone's counseling journey, even if it's one part of it, they could go on and see another counselor 10 years from now. But if I had that impact on the client at some point, I think that I did my job on earth here. If someone was on the fence of counseling and they were unsure and they were going back and forth, I would encourage them to try it. Just go for one session, see how it is. And if you're going to do it, give your all. Don't just show up. Show up with purpose. Because if you're coming and you don't really want to be there, it definitely also shows for the counselor. But there is such a difference when a client comes and they want to do the work and they're ready to talk and they're ready to heal the part of themselves that has now impacted them in their daily life. So in their first intake session, a lot of what I do with clients is I'll explain the basics of what counseling is. I'll go over confidentiality. I'll explain who I am. And then I will also encourage them to say, please elaborate on what you've already given me with your initial intake questionnaire. And I'll have it in front of me as well, and I'll go through it with the client. And I'll also say this is a judgment-free zone. You can say whatever you want in here because it's not going to go past these doors unless you give me insight that there's potential for somebody, either you or someone else, to be hurt. But I also say, don't feel as though I'm going to come in with this preconceived judgment of you based on what knowledge I have. I have this in front of me, but I also want to hear you because you're a person and you're not the paper. I think what I'd want a potential client to know about me beyond being the counselor is that I'm a human being and that in my practice, I won't be perfect and there will be moments where I make mistakes. And especially as someone who's in the process of finishing off their degree and becoming licensed, I don't expect myself to be perfect either, just as I don't expect my clients to be perfect. And so I'm going to come as I am, just as they're going to come as they are. And I'm going to meet them exactly where they are too. If a client comes to the faith-based agency and they don't have a faith and they don't want to have that be the focus, then I'm going to meet them where they're at. And then over time, if they express a want to start to incorporate it into the practice that we hold daily, weekly, however often they'd want to come in, again, I would go based on what they're telling me. I wouldn't impose my own faith onto someone else that isn't at the same level or at the same part in their journey too. And I also think God has the power to come into anyone's life, whether they have accepted or not accepted. And so it's a journey. I'm gonna come at it with the idea of they initially don't want it. If they want it later on, I'll start to put it in. But for anyone that's coming to the agency that doesn't want Christian counseling, I actually am part of a secular program that isn't Christian focused. So I have the training to where we don't have to incorporate in there. So I do not take insurance, but as part of being an intern, I do see clients of all ages at a reduced rate.